Hi there, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm John Decker. I'm the interim associate general manager for content here at KPBS, and it's such a pleasure to have you with us on evening 2 of the GI Film Festival 2021. It's so terrific. And on behalf of everyone here at KPBS and our festival organizers and volunteers, filmmakers, everyone else, thanks for joining us tonight. This evening, two terrific films lead the way. The short you saw before, and then we just finished up with The Girl Who Wore Freedom. We have with us this evening Christian Taylor and Jeff Kurtenacker, both who worked on the film. Christian directed the film, The Girl Who Wore Freedom. Jeff worked incredibly hard on as a lead composer for it, and we'll be able to ask him some questions too about it. Just a reminder that if you have questions you'd like to ask, please include them in the chat window on your screen, and I'll read them here, and be able to have a conversation back and forth with both Christian and Jeff tonight. We've got about 15 or 20 minutes here, so we hope you have enjoyed the films and have some questions. Christian, of course, I'm going to start with you. This is such a terrific film. It was just so emotional and so powerful. Can you tell us a little bit more about where the idea came from for it? Clearly, it was unexpected, wasn't it?
It was incredibly unexpected. I didn't even know what my son was going to be doing. He just called me one day and said, "Mom, the Army's sending me to France." And I said, "We're going to France?" And he's like, "No, you're not going to France." And I was like, "Oh, watch me. I think I am going to go to France." And he couldn't tell me what he was going to do. So in my mind, I made up that he was going to reenact D-Day. And so I really had no idea. I just figured I would go, and I wanted to see what he was doing. And in the first 15 minutes, I ran into Danny and Flo, and all of that began. And it did take, we were only there for 4 days. And at the end of those 4 days, my son said, "Well, if you're ever in the United States, you can come and stay with us." And 2 weeks later, I got an email that said, "We're coming to the United States for Christmas. Can we stay with you for a month?" And of course, we said yes. And I learned much more about their story. And that's where I said, I really wonder if we could do a film.
Mm-hmm. And so they came to visit with you in America and had a chance to talk more about that. What was it that what point when you guys were talking, when they were visiting you, at what point did you say, "I got to do this? This is just such an incredibly powerful story"? What was that?
It was more of a slow boil, because
Oh,
when
yeah.
I was in Normandy, I was filming at the time when I first met them. And on our website, we have this first meeting video, because I was filming and I asked them what they remembered about D-Day. And I was so blown away that during that time, I really felt like America needs to know what's happening here. And then when Flo came to spend Christmas with me and I heard more things, I thought, oh man, somebody has to do this movie. And I kept trying to talk to all of my friends in the industry, and nobody was really taking me up on it. And in 2016, I was at a voiceover conference, because that's what I do for a living. And I have a friend that says, I was just sitting there to myself, and all of a sudden I looked up and said, "I know what I have to do." And
Yeah.
I walked out and called a friend and said, "I think I need to make this movie." So
Those moments are few and far between, and they really compel us and they propel us forward, don't they?
yeah, they do.
Jeff, tell us a bit about your role in the film. We understand as the composer to this, you put a lot of your creative spirit and your creative juices into the movie. Tell us about what it's like to score for a documentary film like this.
Well, this was my first, feature-length film that I had done, and so I was definitely new to the filmmaking scene. But once Christian told me about the film, and she was kind of laying out her vision for it, I felt really actually overwhelmed by just sort of the weight and the gravity of what we're talking about in this film. It's just very emotional. So I was very thankful that it was something I really got to sink my teeth into as a creative person, rather than something like the history of like an automobile or something, which is cool, but there's maybe not a whole lot of emotion there, where this is just really tugs at the heartstrings. So as a composer, you get to find those threads of narrative and really bring those out. And that was really gratifying to me. So I got to go over to Normandy while Christian and her crew were shooting principal photography. And I really didn't know much about this story. When I heard Christian talking about it originally, and I got in contact with her, I said, I really don't know much about D-Day, but I like what I'm hearing. Like, this sounds amazing. And I was blown away by what I saw, just like Christian when I went over there. It just stuff that you don't learn in my public school education about D-Day and how they continue those traditions. So my mind was sort of opened up to that, and my senses were all awakened to how much love they have for America. And I got to infuse that into the score. So being able to be over there was a huge boost to sort of my creative soul.
Yeah, to think, Jeff, that this is your first film to score officially, right? I mean, in some respects, you were able to touch into that emotion a lot more intimately, right? Because this is the first time you didn't know much about the story, and this is the first time you were able to react to it, so that the music that came from that was really genuine.
Yeah, it was pretty raw and fresh.
Yeah.
When I was in Normandy for the first time, I was singing into my phone on on my audio notes app, and then I had an iPad and I was scribbling down ideas, and so I was trying to keep track of some ideas. But it really wasn't until you start to see the interviews come together and you start to see how the story's coming together that you start to see these arcs, and then it starts to feel like, as a composer, I was like, oh, I know what I have to do here. I see my job before me. Before it was sort of chicken scratches on the wall, and then once Christian and Bill, the editor, started putting it together, I was like, oh, I see what I need to do here.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. We do have a couple questions here, and I just want to remind everybody that if you do have a question, go ahead and put it into the chat window, and we'll get it up over here. This is from Jennifer Pelling. For you, Christian, how has reaction to the film varied as you've shown it across the U.S.? And you've been to a number of film festivals. Tell us about the experience.
Great question. Hi, Jennifer. I know Jennifer, actually. Thank you so much for watching. It has varied in some ways a lot, and in other ways, not at all. No matter where we've shown it all over the US, and we've shown it 11 times in France. Overwhelmingly, when it is over, there are very emotional people that want to talk and unload their stories. Usually veterans will want to share. I've showed it in red states and blue states, and poor neighborhoods and wealthier ones. All of them say, we thought the French people hated us. And then they couldn't believe that they'd been celebrating things ever since. Many people said this movie made me rethink American influence overseas, and I can see how it would be a positive thing. But overwhelmingly, it is the modern day service members and the veterans and the spouses. When they watch this, it seems to have a very healing effect, and I hear a lot of their stories unpacked. I showed it to a 96-year-old veteran last week, and he called me for an hour and couldn't stop talking and telling me what he had heard. And I think they know now I am a willing ear, and I love to listen to their stories. And so I get a lot of those when it's over.
Well, it is such a touching film on so many different levels, and I'd agree. When I saw it, and of course I'm no military expert, and certainly don't know a tremendous amount about World War II, I suppose, but to understand more the relationship between the French and the GIs that landed there, and then by extension, it's the French nation and Americans in general, was very, very touching. It was very, very unusual to see that storyline. We've got another question here from Jeannie Scott in La Mesa. Hello, Jeannie. She would like to know, how many times did you travel to France, and in what period of time? I think what she's asking about is a bit about your filming sessions when you went back.
Yeah, great question, Jeannie. Thank you. So we did principal photography for 6 weeks in 2018. We came home, realized we didn't have exactly a few pieces that we needed. We went back in December for 2 weeks in 2018. So there's 2 months there, right there. And then I had been previously to that time for a week. So then in 2019, we took the rough cut of the film and screened it in Normandy for the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Our very first screening was at the Utah Beach Museum, and we showed it 11 more times there. And then So we were there 4 weeks that time. So really 3 months over the course of 2018 and 2019. We were supposed to be there in 2020, showing the final thing, but that did not happen. So 3 months of time in country over the course of 2.5 years.
Mhm. No doubt. Do you plan on going back and having
Oh,
more
of
screenings?
course. Of course. We actually, I was so heartbroken. We won the Normandy World War II Film Festival this year. And
Really?
typically it's a big screening in Normandy and everybody comes from everywhere. And of course, we weren't able to do that. So we're trying to figure out how to do a screening in Normandy next year. We will be there. I can't imagine not being in Normandy every D-Day. So we're looking forward to that coming back next year.
Wow. And you, Jeff, what were those trips like for you going back?
I mean, incredibly eye-opening. So I don't have much sort of lineage in World War II. I didn't hear a whole lot of stories from grandma and grandpa or anything like that. And so I kind of went in there a little bit blind, just based on the little bit of history I knew and what a Christian had told me. And my parents actually paid for me to go because they felt they really believed in it as well. So they paid for me to go when Christian was filming in 2019 or 2018, excuse me. And man, what I got to walk on Utah Beach and Omaha Beach and see the cemeteries and meet these people. It's just overwhelming. And so you feel like you're just stepping into a living history book. It was really, really profound.
Oh, that is a great way to put it. It is
Yeah.
like one of these pop-up books that comes out and you step in and you're like in this world, because it doesn't think like everything is kind of the same. The buildings are
Yeah.
the same. The beaches are the same.
So
So much is the same.
the first night
Mhm.
I get there, Christian, we were in St. Marie du Mont, and Christian was walking me around. She's like, so right here, this street is where they marched, the American GIs marched down. And then when you look at pictures from that moment, like the buildings are like Christian said, they're exactly the same. Like everything is still there. And then the people you're talking to were alive then, and they can tell you what happened. It's just very surreal.
It is.
They're walking through
And Jeff,
history.
tell them what happened so there's a 1100-year-old church in St. Marie du Mont. It's this beautiful church. And Danny was married in this church. And so Jeff kept wanting to find, well, I'll let you tell your own story, Jeff.
Yeah, I was I thought it'd be very cool if there was some sort of, something from Normandy, the spirit of Normandy that we sort of take back and put into the score. And I thought, man, if we could get into one of these old churches, I think that would be unbelievable. And so Christian knew everyone and they all loved her. And so she had the keys to the city. So they were able to work it out to let us into this church and unlock the organ for me. And we set up a bunch of audio recording equipment. And we just got this great sound of this beautiful old organ reverberating in this massive church. And it was gorgeous. And I really didn't know what to play. I was just sort of trying to like emote at the organ and hope that something might work out. And then ultimately we were able to use a section of that in the film, which is super cool because it really does give it this sort of authenticity that that part of the score that's right from Normandy.
It's real. It's not synthesized.
Yeah.
Again, folks, we have a few more minutes left to go. If you do have a question, all you need to do is just scroll down on your screen and you'll see the chat window and you can put it in there. I've got one from, I don't know who, this is anonymous. Here you are. How do you think we can keep the history and its importance alive for US children? You want to tackle that, Kristen?
I do. Great question. It is incumbent on every single one of us to do that. And what I learned from the Normans is they didn't just give their child a book to read or a film to watch. They actually take them places, and not just during a 4th of July or a Memorial Day parade. They take them and tell them on the spot what happened. And we have plenty of those things here in the United States. Gettysburg is one, what are the things that happened in Boston? I mean, there's so much rich history around us that we have forgotten our own history. There are monuments all over the United States about things that our heroes have done for us. Take your children to those places. If you are a veteran, go and offer your your services to tell stories in the schools. It doesn't matter what war you're in. Take our movie. It'll be for sale soon. You can take our movie into the schools. We hope to have a wide educational distribution, because we really feel like the French give us a wonderful window to look through for how to pass down history and keep it alive in our collective memory.
I would agree. This film is a great way to do that as well. We can take active participation by teaching our children. Speaking of history and speaking of connecting to it, so Christian, let's go back to the beginning again. Your son was there as part of a contingent of airborne guys, and how has your opinion, or has your view, your perception of his role now changed since going through this process? I mean, do you see your son a bit differently now? I mean, it's been a few years now, but I mean, do you see his role as a member of the U.S. military a little bit differently now after having gone through this process of making the film?
Well, what's more important is he sees his role differently.
And
It was a fascinating transformation for him, because he had just gotten back from Afghanistan. And while he was over there, he really felt like, why are we here? We're not making any difference. This is not important. However, he was spending time making friends with Afghanis. He was teaching a Bible study, and Afghani men came. He was doing things. There's a story of this little boy on the bike that would ride by his guard post and wave at him every day. They were making these little connections, but they never meant anything to him when he was there. When he went to Normandy and he saw the impact that the GIs in World War II had on the French children, and now he sees sort of the freedom in the society and the gratitude they have, he learned that the small, tiny actions that he did as wearing the American uniform really made an impact on those he was around. So going to Normandy impacted him that way, because he saw how we take the best of America with us wherever we go, whether they're goodwill missions or whether it's to help another country be free. And interestingly enough, my third son, after seeing clips of this movie, joined the Army because he was inspired by the World War II veterans and he wanted to follow in their footsteps. So that to me just takes my breath away. Hunter right now is in OCS in the Navy. He left the Army and he's gone to join the Navy and hopes to fly for the Navy soon. So he just feels more passionately than ever that it matters to be an American military soldier, because we can make a difference in the world.
Wow, that's a powerful story. It's a powerful impact. Thanks for sharing that. We've got time for one more question here. And I guess this is both you, Christian, both you and Jeff can answer this. What are the key takeaway lessons you learned from working on this project? And that's from Dave. You want to tackle
Jeff,
that first? Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Dave. It's a good question. The key lessons, well, I think there's a personal side, and for me personally, and then there's a sort of a historical side. But for me, after going through this process and seeing just having my eyes open to the different perspective of meeting the people of Normandy and hearing their side of the story, it, like Christian just spoke about, the small gestures, the impact that a lot of these veterans don't even realize that they had on the people of Normandy that were freed and then subsequently grew up. It's remarkable. So it does really open your eyes to small changes. That's how we as a culture and a society and global citizens start to unite and connect and make these inroads to peace and love, is these small little incremental changes. And it may seem insignificant, like Hunter experienced, and then ultimately you realize, wow, it was over time that little snowball became a huge mountain. And I think that's a really powerful sort of microcosm of what you see in this film with the people of Normandy, is how they experienced that, and then how they went on to continue that tradition of love and honoring these veterans.
To amplify what Jeff was saying, I just want to give an example. It is the tiny, tiny little things that that we don't take seriously. But a paratrooper that landed in Carentan when Jean-Marie was 7 told Jean-Marie, he motioned to him to come forward. Jean-Marie did. The paratrooper handed Jean-Marie some gum, and he scarfed it all down and ran home to his mama. And he told him that he was going to become a paratrooper when he grew up. And he did. He became a paratrooper, and he fought in the Algerian War, saved his officer's life. And then his son became a paratrooper, and all because one paratrooper stopped to show an act of kindness to this little French boy. So, it's exactly what you're talking about, Jeff. Those small little things for others are what really change people's lives. And for me, I learned, there are 2 things. I mean, I was a first-time director, so I had a lot to learn. I thought in the beginning, well, how hard can it be? Well, it was incredibly hard. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my whole life, from trying to raise the money to put the teams together to actually get it across the finish line. And what I would say to filmmakers that are watching, if you believe in something and you believe it passionately, do not quit. Keep going until you get that film across the finish line, because the sense of reward and satisfaction that you have given people meaningful work, that you've told a story that a lot of people have never heard before, it's incredibly rewarding. So I feel that way for sure. And the other thing I learned personally, not only do we need to actually take time to listen to the veterans. I was telling you earlier, we have a podcast called Documentary First. And for the last 2, this week and next week, we're talking to George Champa, who was a 96-year-old World War II veteran that landed on Utah Beach and was with the Grave Registration Service. And I could listen to him talk forever. His stories are remarkable. But I learned through this process that we have not just the veterans, but many, many older people that were alive during this time period that we've stopped listening to, and they feel marginalized and ignored. And if we just set aside time to volunteer in nursing homes or run errands, there's just so many things we can do to listen to our older community. It blesses them in ways that you cannot even imagine. And I believe God sees those things. And it's good for the soul.
Thank you, Christian and Jeff. Thank you very much for being here tonight, guys. Yeah, really a terrific film. Can't say enough good things about it.
Thank
so we
you.
wish you
Thanks, John.
continued success. We hope that you get to take it back to France and show it a whole lot more, and find wide distribution for it. I love your idea of getting it into the hands of schools, because it's a terrific way to tell that story. So thanks again, guys. And thanks to all of our questions. Don't go anywhere, though. I've got a couple of closing announcements. Naturally, here at being the end of the a lot more great films to go for everyone. We hope that you join us for more of them. For the full schedule, go to gifilmfestivalsd.org, and there's still tickets to be had. Of course, all of them are virtual. We'd love to see you in attendance. Thanks all to everybody for making this virtual festival possible, including our advisory committee members, the Film Consortium San Diego, our filmmakers, and our festival sponsors and partners, who include the California Arts Council, Scatina Daniels Communications, National University, Task and Purpose, and the San Diego International Airport Arts Program. Oh, yes, by the way, in the email reminder you got for the screening, there was a link to our attendee survey. Please take a couple of moments to do the survey, because we certainly appreciate hearing from you and getting your feedback, because we do take all of that in and then improve our festival from year to year, because GI Film Festival 2022 is going to be here before you know it, and will be better than ever. Thanks again to everybody, and Claudine and Carla for helping to run the screening tonight. Jeff, Christian, terrific. Thanks again for being here tonight, everybody. Congratulations on the success.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. Take care.